Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. 18th day of April now, 2021. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got hazardous weather graphic, and there's on the eastern Arctic coast, there's a winter storm watch out for that area. Barter Island, Kaktovik, there. Camden Bay, I believe, but just east of Prudhoe Bay and Dead Horse. Anyway, that's out for the period of, Monday evening, or through 6 p.m. Monday evening through 6 a.m. Tuesday morning. So Monday night, and that's for winds to increase to 50 miles per hour in gusts, and possibly 1 to 2 inches of new snow. And that'll create blowing snow with visibilities possibly as low as a quarter mile in blowing and drifting snow. And then for the same situation, but not quite as severe, for the eastern Brooks Range there, Galbraith Lake and Arctic Village, those areas in the Brooks Range on the east side there, eastern North Slope, winter weather advisory, and that's out for the same time period, 6 p.m. Monday evening through the morning hours of Tuesday, early morning hours. Again, Monday night to early Tuesday, and that's for, winds gusting 30 to 40 miles an hour out of the west, and possibly 2 inches of snow, and so visibilities there in the blowing snow could be reduced to to 1/2 mile or less. Anyway, moving on to the satellite imagery. Strong high pressure over western Canada and the Panhandle, ridging up across the southeast coast into the eastern interior. Copper River Basin brought sunny, warm conditions from the Brooks Range there south into the Tanana Valley. Temperatures well into the 50s up in that area, maybe even some locations reaching 60. And into the mid-60s, Copper River Basin in some locations. The Sitna Valley, same thing. Matanuska Valley, some areas in 60 to 65 at mid-afternoon, as well as the Kenai Peninsula, central Kenai Peninsula. Kenai Lake had 66 degrees at the reporting station there. And even warmer on the North Gulf Coast with Cordova coming in this afternoon with 72 degrees, but that wasn't the warm spot in the state. Hoonah had 70 degrees. Klawock, 75. That was the warmest location I could find so far this afternoon at 3 p.m. with 75 degrees, while Ketchikan had 72. So very warm weather with the high freezing levels, strong upper high pressure, and of course the very long day lengths now. A lot of sunshine. Different story, Kodiak Island, clouds and some light rain, as well as Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula. Amounts ranged from about 1,600 in the last 12 hours, ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon at Kodiak State Airport. Igigik picked up about 1,100ths of an inch, while Togiak about 1/10 of an inch. Everywhere else, Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay had just a few hundredths of an inch there. Winds kicking up to about 35 miles an hour. Or 30 north gust 30 miles an hour at St. George Island. There are skies clearing out, and see a little bit of clearing there moving over the area, as well as St. Paul. And a lot of breaks out over the Aleutians, kind of a narrow band, remnants of a frontal boundary there around the Amchitka to Adak area. And then up along the Arctic coast, variably cloudy. Still some pretty gusty winds, not as strong as yesterday. Cape Lisburne had gusts of 45 miles an hour throughout the day today, which is down from the 65 to 75 mile per hour wind gusts they had yesterday. And that it's just a classic pattern there for strong winds in that location, with a higher pressure over to the east and southeast, and then lower pressure to the northwest, which is exactly what you got going on there today. So that winds actually may increase as that trough edge is closer this evening, or at least stay up around the levels they are now. But everywhere else up there will see much lighter winds. And today, mostly sunny, warm in the eastern interior, a little more clouds and cooler out toward the coast in the west. And then the shower activity of the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta was pretty light and hit and miss, a little more hit than miss over the Bristol Bay and Alaska Peninsula area. Some of that mostly over southern Kodiak Island, but it did reach the state airport today. And then maybe some clouds, variably cloudy, Cook Inlet, and mostly sunny in the Panhandle with the temperatures there into the 70s in many locations. And for tonight, you'll see the remnants of that frontal boundary kind of still hung up there over the central Aleutians, lying parallel to the wind flow from north to south there, so really not moving too much. Winds gets a little breezy there for the Alaska Peninsula, looking at small craft advisories from Unalaska Island, possibly to Kodiak Island. Actually coming up to small craft advisories tonight with periods of light rain across that entire area there in the green shaded area. Only rain or snow showers, probably mostly in the form of rain for the Pribilof Islands. Interior, variably cloudy. Most of the clouds will be over the western part and maybe to the north a little bit, but mostly clear elsewhere, all the way down the southeast coast. Very weak trough there. Approaching the south, or Prince of Wales Island coastline, but the clouds should hold off until, well, they don't make it at all. That area just kind of slips off to the southeast over the top of that ridge, and the other one pulls back toward the Barren Islands, western North Gulf Coast, bringing a slight risk of a shower to the southern tip of the Kenai Peninsula, and stays kind of damp and unsettled for Kodiak Island, as well as the Pribilofs and the southern Bering Sea or southeast Bering. Periods of rain for the Alaska Peninsula, light rain again with gusty winds, high pressure over the Russian Far East, 1,044 millibars, tightening the gradient up there from the western interior, or actually from the Brooks Range, and those troughs passing along the Arctic coast. The one coming in tomorrow afternoon, that's going to be the stronger one that brings the winter weather advisory and winter storm watches, or that's responsible for those watches and warnings, or watches and advisories tomorrow night for the eastern Brooks Range, North Slope, and Arctic coastal areas. Otherwise, it stays dry over the interior. Just the big change will be an increase in the winds there for the Norton Sound area, Yukon Delta Coast, northern and eastern Bering Sea, and quite windy into the central Aleutians, but much lighter winds for the Alaska Peninsula and Fox Islands, light winds for the Panhandle. For Tuesday, chance of showers there for the northern southeast coast, which obviously means it'll be a little bit cooler, but still partly mostly sunny down south, probably staying dry with high pressure right off the coast, maybe a little cooler. And kind of a change there for the southeast interior with a trough there over the Yukon now, and rain and snow showers could be on the numerous side possibly for that entire area there, all the way down into Prince William Sound. An increase in the clouds, south central Alaska, with a risk of a shower over the mountainous terrain anywhere from the Alaska Range down into the Kenai Peninsula. Periods of light rain, trailing edge of that front just catching Kodiak Island, and rain likely though for the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians to Atka, tapering off at Adak. High pressure, pretty strong ridge there over the western Bering Sea and the Aleutians for light winds with mostly sunny skies. And those mostly clear over the northern Bering Sea into the western interior areas. Offshore flow, a little bit warmer there. High pressure over the North Slope, light winds, and then that system weakening throughout the day on the eastern Arctic coast. Moving on to lows for tonight, mid-20s Copper River Basin, 30 to 35, south central Alaska, upper 30s along the coast, upper 30s Bristol Bay, and mid-20s for the northern Kuskokwim Valley, mid-30s to lower 40s for the Panhandle. In the interior, 20s. Teens for the Brooks Range, North Slope and Arctic coast, lower 20s there, Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, mid-20s Yukon Delta, lower 30s along the southwest coast, mid to upper 30s for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And the highs tomorrow, mid-50s Copper River Basin, 60s, 65s to Sitna Valley, 50s to possibly near 60 there in the Kenai Peninsula, and showing up cooler now in the Panhandle, 60s, upper 50s to mid-60s, and mid-40s for Kodiak Island, lower 50s Bristol Bay, lower 60s there for McGrath and Nikolai, maybe upper 50s Sleep Mute, lower 60s in the Fairbanks area, 50 for the Yukon Flats around Chalkitsik and Fort Yukon, and highs staying in the 20s for the Arctic coast and North Slope, at 35 to 40 for the Brooks Range, lower 30s there in northern Bering Sea, Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, but up to 38 for Nome. And lower 40s for the Kuskokwim Delta, upper 30s, lower 40s out west, mid 40s Alaska Peninsula. Lows Tuesday morning in the 30s for the Panhandle, 30s south central Alaska, lows above freezing there. Anchorage 37, 32 for Gulkana, 40 for Kodiak. Teens and 20s in the interior, single numbers along the Brooks Range, North Slope and Arctic coast. In fact, North Slope might edge below zero a little bit, but not too far. Mid-teens for St. Lawrence Island, in the teens for the Seward Peninsula, mid-30s. Pribilofs, mid to upper 30s for the central western Aleutians, lower 40s to near 40 for the Alaska Peninsula and Fox Islands. Highs for Tuesday, cooler for the Panhandle, 55 to 60, and 40s to lower to mid 50s southern Alaska, north side lower to mid 40s Tanana Valley, 20s from the Brooks Range of the Arctic coast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jessica Cherry from the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center, bringing you the first 2021 breakup outlook for Alaska. I'm going to tell you today that Alaska has above average risk for flooding on the upper Yukon and Kuskokwim rivers in some locations. Let's get into the details. Components that we consider when we make this breakup outlook include ice thickness and its strength, the snowpack, and the spring weather pattern. Late April and early May temperatures control the rate of snowmelt, the thermal conditions and integrity of the ice, and the type of breakup, whether it's mechanical and very dynamic or thermal and melts in place. We use freezing degree days as percent of normal as a proxy for ice thickness across the state, and this shows that ice thickness on our larger rivers is just about normal throughout the interior. We have higher ice thickness on rivers in south central and lower in southwest, but throughout the major rivers in the interior, it's about normal. One exception on the upper Yukon is that there were freeze-up ice jams this last fall, and that led to jumbled and very thick ice on the upper Yukon. Now let's look at the April 1st snowpack. Through our agency partners, we know that snowpack is well above average in the Kuskokwim Basin, and it's above average in the upper Yukon on the Canadian side near the headwaters. It's below average snowpack in the AKwx Basin and well above average in the northern southeast panhandle. It's above average in the southern Seward Peninsula, and it's average or below average other places. Finally, let's take a look at the climate outlook over the next couple weeks. The 6-day temperature trend ending April 24th shows likely to be normal temperatures in the interior and south central Alaska, likely to be above normal temperatures in southwest and western and northern Alaska, and over the Gulf Coast and Copper River Basin, likely to be below average. The following week, over the 8 to 14-day temperature trend, we're looking at likely above normal temperatures throughout much of Alaska, in particular in southwest. So we're trending towards a mechanical breakup on Alaska's major rivers. Flood potential on the Kuskokwim and upper Yukon is above average. Flood potential on the North Slope and AKwx basins is below average due to the low snowpack. And we have average flood potential in other parts of the state. Here's our graphic that shows some of that information. So in terms of snowmelt runoff compared to average, we're looking at below average on the northern half of the state, and throughout some of the interior, above average snowmelt conditions. At the village level, we're looking at moderate flood risk at Eagle and Circle in parts of the Kuskokwim. We're looking at low flood potential in the lower Yukon and many other communities. We're going to be launching our River Watch effort. This is a collaboration with the state of Alaska and local communities to monitor breakup here in the next couple weeks. On our website, you can find our breakup map. This will be updated daily as we receive new information from satellite sources and community calls. Here's some of our online resources. Take a look at our website for the current breakup outlook as a text product, for our Alaska breakup map, and the graphical breakup outlook that I showed you. Finally, we need your observations. Please submit those on our website, send us an email, or pick up the phone and give us a call at one of these numbers.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Monday morning. IFR in the west there from the western Arctic coast right on down into the eastern Bering, southeast Bering across the Alaska Peninsula, marginal for the Fox Islands, some VFR, ADAC and ATGA, and then another band of IFR slipping just east of Shimmy and Attu. Some IFR over toward the eastern border in the east central interior there. Otherwise, VFR from the Yukon Flats right on down across the mid-Tanana Valley, Alaska Range. So sitting in the Manuska Valley, some marginal VFR slips into Cook Inlet, but VFR, Prince William Sound, Gulf Coast, and the Panhandle. Some lower stuff starts to approach the Panhandle, but still is a fair distance off the coast tomorrow afternoon, and stays VFR, much of southern Alaska VFR. Just some marginal VFR possible from Iliamna Lake, Kamishak Bay, into the Kuskokwim Valley, and then right on up over toward the Kuskokwim Mountains a little bit, but VFR for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. And IFR per Lost Fox Islands, more IFR there, eastern Arctic coast down into the northern Koyukuk Valley with marginal VFR covering much of the northern half of the state. And then for Tuesday morning, back with that IFR condition there over the eastern interior from about the, well, it looks like almost the Alaska Range, which would put it almost into the Fairbanks area, definitely Northway Tok on across Eagle, up into the Yukon Flats, and VFR down the remainder of the Yukon River Valley area in the Kuskokwim Delta, and the right to the northern Kuskokwim Delta, Yukon Delta, marginal for the North Slope, eastern Arctic coast. IFR, Bering Sea, marginal VFR, western Aleutians, and marginal for the Alaska Peninsula. Fognak Island, up along the south coast of the Kenai Peninsula into southwestern Prince William Sound, Montague Island, IFR. IFR now right along and off the central and south coast of the Panhandle, VFR over toward the border. And for the morning, or for the afternoon Tuesday, we've got IFR there, Yakutat, Cape Yakataga area down to just about west or near Elfin Cove, and otherwise staying VFR for the remainder of the Panhandle there. Some marginal VFR with some areas of IFR across southern Alaska. And up to the north, good VFR from the Kuskokwim Delta, actually Bethel, Kuskokwim Mountains westward into the northern Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island, good VFR, marginal VFR, eastern Arctic coast, and the North Slope, and that's about it. Big area of IFR. Now Nunivak Island to St. Matthew Island, Pribilofs, all of the Aleutians there, and along the south side of the Alaska Peninsula to Sitkinak. Passes Anatuvik, marginal VFR becomes IFR tomorrow, that moisture dropping in, and a little longer starts out VFR for Adigan, but still becoming IFR into the afternoon. And Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal to start, VFR during the morning through the afternoon. And same trend for rainy, windy though, VFR, and Isabel looks VFR. Definitely VFR from Antasta. Tanita will be VFR tomorrow. Portage, either approach, VFR. Through the pass, Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels, 8,000 feet with the upper level ridge there, eastern interior, and over the Yukon with the ridge or the thermal axis of 8,000 feet right down across the Panhandle, 6,000 feet to Bristol Bay, cooler air out over the Bering Sea, 1 to 2,000 feet or so. But at the surface, well, inland over the western interior. And icing, just a slight threat of a risk of some light icing there for the Arctic coast of that narrow band of moisture they're kind of tracking eastward. And about the same for the Kenai Peninsula into the Barren Islands. A little bit better chance Kodiak Island. Best chance of some light to isolated moderate rime or mixed icing will be for the Fox Islands. Jet stream ridging there, western Canada, the Yukon, actually ridges across southern Alaska tomorrow. And southwest flow up to 100 knots there on the north side of the ridge on the north slope, and easterly 70 to 95 south of the ridge axis, Gulf of Alaska, across the Alaska Peninsula. Northerlies 105 for the western Aleutians. 9,000 feet, high pressure over the Russian Far East, again ridging in across southern Alaska to western Canada. Low pressure putting to the south there, putting a squeeze in the atmosphere, so east-southeast 55 knots across the Aleutian Range and Bristol Bay, as well as just north of the Fox Islands. 50 knotters out of the east there, southeast Bering Sea and the Alaska Peninsula. Northerlies 50 for the Seward Peninsula. Turbulence, considerable moderate chop, Kotzebue Sound, Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, all the way to almost Adak. Otherwise, light to isolated moderate chop along and a little bit inland there for the western areas and maybe the central Arctic coast. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
What is a hydrograph? You may have seen these graphs on the internet, whether on a National Weather Service webpage, Facebook post, or tweet, or you may have seen these on your local news station during times of flooding. A hydrograph is a plot of observed and forecast river height and flow with time. Each point on the graph represents two different variables: river height in units of feet, found on the left side, and river flow in units of CFS, which stands for cubic feet per second. It can also say KCFS, which stands for 1,000 cubic feet per second. On the left side of the image, the blue dots represent the observed river height and flow, while on the right side, the purple squares signify the forecast height and flow. The observed stage points are measured via a United States Geological Survey sensor located in the river. The forecast points come from the National Weather Service river forecast centers found across the country. Their hydrologists and meteorologists produce these sophisticated modeling tools that simulate soil, snow, and river conditions. The points are plotted with local time, which are shown on the x-axis on the bottom. There are different river stages that the National Weather Service uses to describe what the river is doing and what potential impacts the public may experience. Action stage is a stage at which you are getting close to the flood stage. Minor flooding means that there will be minimal or no property damage, but possibly some public threat. Moderate means that there will be some flooding of structures and roads near the river, some evacuations of people and/or transfer of property to higher elevations is possible. A major flood stage means extensive flooding of structures and roads, significant evacuations of people and/or transfer of property to higher elevations. Record flooding, highest gauge and flow readings ever recorded for that period of record. So let us look at this Yak River hydrograph. Here is a non-flooding example. At 3 p.m. April 4th, the observed river height was just near 6 feet, and the volume of water rushing past the sensor was measured at 2,490 cubic feet per second. Think of a cubic foot of water as that equal to fill a basketball, over 2,000 basketballs passing through in 1 second. The forecast shows that the height of the river will rise to 7 feet by Monday, April 11th. Here is a major flooding example. This point here, which is within the moderate flood stage, occurred between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. on May 1st. What is happening in this graph? Well, this river has shown a dramatic rise in the river levels in a short amount of time. It rose from 5 feet at 10 p.m. to 15 feet at 4 a.m. the next morning. The flow increased from being 1,400 CFS to around 11,000 cubic feet per second within 24 hours. That is a very large amount of water flow. This is a major flooding scenario. You can see the observed river height protruded into the purple zone here. Still, this height was 6 feet from the record stage of 21 feet. In this scenario, over 6 inches of rain fell within 2 days, causing rivers to rise quickly. How do you find hydrographs? There are at least 2 ways of getting to the graphs. One is to go to the hydrology link on your local National Weather Service Forecast Office webpage, or you can go straight to the AHAPS page at water.weather.gov. AHAPS stands for Advanced Hydrologic Prediction Service. The main AHAPS page displays all the available river gauges found across the United States. Each point is color-coded to match the particular river stage that it is currently experiencing. Left-click on the area that you want to look at and it will zoom in. If you hover your mouse over a particular station, a hydrograph will pop up. If you left-click on a station, you will be able to get more information. If you hover your mouse cursor over a point, it will give you that specific information. Scroll down the page and you will see where the river gauge is located, what the flood categories are, and give you historic and recent river crests. These give you a picture of how high the river can flood in relation to history. Scroll down some more. In the flood impact section, you can get an understanding of what particular areas will flood based on what has flooded in the past along a section of the river that the gauge represents. For the National Weather Service, I'm Dave Noble.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
The ice analysis, still some heavier ice there in Bristol Bay, but Togiak Bay really thinning out now, almost a small area of open water. And also around Nunivak Island breaking up, and the main ice edge out to the west also showing some retreat sort of to the north there, but still very close to St. Matthew Island, and a thinner area there off the Yukon Delta coast, and sea ice in Cook Inlet continuing to slowly dissipate. Coastal water forecasts for the southeast coast for Monday: Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, south 15 knots. And the central coast, central outer coastline, south winds 15 knots with 8-foot seas. Coastal on Prince of Wales Island, west 15. Southeast 15 knots, 7-foot seas for the extreme north coast. Central southern inside waters looking at a light southerly breeze at 10 knots with seas at around 2 feet. Outlook for Tuesday: Lynn Canal, north at 10. Light northwest breeze for the central and southern inside waters, 10 to 15 knots. Northwest breeze, 10 to 15 knots, 2 to 3 foot seas. Northwest winds 20 knots on the south coast with 9-foot seas. West 15 for the north coast and seas at 8 feet. And for northern Cook Inlet, look for northeast wind tomorrow at about 15 knots, 3-foot seas with small craft advisory south of the Forelands, north 25, turn northeast 25 for Kamishak Bay. East 30 knots for the Barren Islands and northeast 25 western North Gulf Coast. And for Prince William Sound, northeast at 10, seas 2 feet. Eastern North Gulf Coast, east winds 20 knots with 6-foot seas. Tuesday's outlook: Cook Inlet northwest 10 to 15 knots, seas 2 to 3 feet. Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands northeast at 15 knots, 4 to 9 foot seas. North Gulf Coast, westerly breeze 10 to 15 knots, seas at around 9 feet. Light winds for Prince William Sound out of the northwest at 10 knots. Kodiak Island, east side there, east winds 30 knots for small craft advisories, but gale warnings for Shelikof Strait and also from Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Sustained northeast winds there at 35 knots, 12 to 14-foot seas. Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula, northeast winds at 30 knots with 4 to 9-foot seas. 30-knot winds continue for the Alaska Peninsula on Tuesday. Pacific side out of the east at 30 knots. Top side there, northeast at 30. Bristol Bay, northeast 25. Same thing for Shelikof Strait, east 25 knots there for the east side of Kodiak Island. And for the Unalaska Island area tomorrow, north 25 to 30 knots, 8 to 10-foot seas. Gale warning, Zunmak Island, north 35 knots. Same thing for Adak and Atka. Gale warnings with north winds at 35 knots. Amchitka Island, small craft advisories, north 25. Kiska, Shimei, and Attu, northeast of 15. Northeast 20 knots for Shimei to Kiska. Amchitka Island, small craft advisories, as well as Adak and Atka. And Unmak Island for 25-knot winds out of the north. Unalaska Island, a little stronger. Northeast 30 knots, 9 to 13-foot seas. Kuskokwim Delta Coast, northeast at 30 tomorrow, otherwise the Pribilofs, and St. Matthew Island, north winds at 30 knots, 6 to 8-foot seas. 30-knot winds out of the north for the Yukon Delta Coast, and 25-knot winds for St. Lawrence Island. Those brisk wind advisories continue on Tuesday for both Norton Sound and St. Lawrence Island. Northeast winds 30 knots, and the Yukon Delta Coast, same thing, northeast at 30. St. Matthew Island, northeast 30, and the Pribilofs and the Kuskokwim Delta Coast, all northeast winds 30 knots. And for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, west-southwest at 20, 25-knot westerlies for the central coast, back down to 20 from the west for the west side, and then from Cape Beaufort to Wales, northwest winds at 20 knots. And outlook for Tuesday, kind of a variable wind pattern there from Wales to Cape Thompson at 10 knots, mostly from the north, but mostly variable as well. And then south winds turn southwest to 20 knots for the western Arctic coast, central Arctic coast, small or brisk wind advisories. Central and east side, 25 to 30 knot winds there, and then gale warnings there for the area over toward Kaktovik to Demarcation Point, west 35 knots, and a lot of blowing snow expected with that. For tonight, one trough bringing a chance of some light snow onto the western Arctic coast late tonight, otherwise dry over the interior. Chance of rain increases or continues for Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, to a lesser extent Bristol Bay, rain and snow showers at Pribilofs, dry over the Panhandle, and high pressure over the Russian Far East continues and tightens the gradient up over the eastern Bering Sea to the central Aleutians for those increasing winds. Stays kind of unsettled and damp, a little breezy for Kodiak Island. Same thing for the Alaska Peninsula. Dry and warm again over interior Alaska. Chance of snow there with each passing trough on the Arctic coast, with that second one a little stronger. Dry for the Panhandle. And Tuesday, that trough weakens in the afternoon on the Arctic coast. Chance of rain and snow showers southeast interior.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.